Hi, I'm Glenn Whipp with the Los Angeles Times. The Steven Soderbergh series, The Knick, premiered last year on Cinemax. The medical drama takes place in New York in 1900, follows a group of innovative surgeons. I think the best surgeon is Dr. Algernon Edwards, played by Holland. He joined us today.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Great, glad to be here, man. Thank you.
I would say he's pretty great surgeon. He's just having to deal with a lot of complications to be able to show his talent.
Yeah, he's a pretty well-trained guy. He's got loads of experience, and it takes a little while, but I think eventually he does sort of get accepted and appreciated for what he brings to the table.
Yeah, I saw you did a chat on Periscope. It must have been a couple of weeks ago, and you said that the character this season not as alone.
Yeah,
which was good news because, my God, that was a rough 10 episodes for your character coming back from Paris to New York and dealing with really having a hard time fitting in.
Yeah, well, that's what's so interesting about the character is that he had been so successful in Paris and in London where he worked before, and just he came back expecting that he would be accepted, and then he found himself, after having done everything right in his life and his career, finds himself on this island, and so I think that solitude and that loneliness really ate him up last year. So I think this year we're going to get to see a different side of him because, as I said, he's slightly less alone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for the Knick, I'm hesitant to say a happier, character because I mean, happiness not a real consistent tone of the show, but maybe in a better place. You're saying.
Yeah. There's moments of him being in a better place. So yeah.
We wouldn't want it too much.
Right. It wouldn't be the Knick if it was too happy, right?
Yeah. when you got they sent you the script for the first season.
Yeah.
Right. And it was the whole thing, right?
It was. Yeah.
Is that how thick was that?
It's massive. It was about 600 pages,
right,
I believe. And the big challenge was, because it's all shot like a film, right? So we shot it all mostly out of order, out of sequence. And so the biggest challenge was just sort of keeping the trajectory, the arc of the character in your head, keeping it all straight. So what I did and what a lot of other people did is we created these big boards that just on note cards list every single scene that we're in, all in episode 1, episode 2, episode 3. So we come into work on a day and they say, okay, well, we're going to start the morning in, scene 5 from episode 3, and then we're going to jump to episode 8, and then we're going to go back to episode 1. So you just have sort of a quick reference guide to okay, well, here's where I'm coming from. Here's where I'm going after that. So you can keep things lined up.
Straight in your head.
Yeah, exactly. Because it can be a doozy.
Was it pretty exciting to go up for this part when you're getting a 600-page script and you're thinking, because it's a lot of great stuff for that character.
Yeah.
I read a thing where you filmed your audition on an iPad, right?
Yeah.
I did. Away.
Yeah, I was away. I was in Italy at the time. I just left Italy, to be fair, and I was headed to Portugal. I do this sort of Shakespeare thing every summer over in Europe, and so I was there doing that, and I got the script, and they said, well, we need you to tape yourself, and we need to have it right away. It's like you got to have it in by tomorrow. And I was at a hotel in Lisbon and got my iPad out and needed somebody to read the off-camera lines with me. And so I walked around the hotel, all morning trying to find somebody. Finally, I got my the maid.
Need somebody to speak English.
Somebody to speak English, exactly. So the maid seemed to speak pretty good English. So I invited her, and I was like, "Would you mind helping me with this thing?" And so we tried it, and then when I played it back, it didn't work. Her accent was pretty thick, and she was a good sport, but it just didn't quite work. So I sat in the lobby for a little bit longer. Yeah, and I really, I wanted to give myself a shot at it. So I sat in the lobby all morning, and then I found this English couple who were honeymooning in Portugal. And so I, asked the young lady if she would come to my hotel room, and her new husband was a bit like, "What do you mean going to your hotel?" But they both came with me. I explained to them what was happening, and it all worked out. But yeah.
Her line readings were pretty good.
It was good. As it turned out, she actually did a drama course in school, so it was perfect. She had had a little bit of experience, and I wish I didn't get their information. I wish I did, because I'd love to thank them.
You should have sent her an email.
I know.
Thanks.
More email, some flowers or something.
Right. So that was how you auditioned for it.
That's how I auditioned.
I'm just curious, what scene were you guys reading? Because there was some crazy. There could have been some crazy stuff that would have given the new husband even more pause.
No,
right?
Fortunately, we didn't do any of the Cornelia scenes together.
Yeah.
But we did. I think we did the scene where the first scene where Clive and I meet. When I come in and he's not expecting me to be black.
Right.
We did that scene, and then we did another one, which I think was my first surgery scene, where I, lead them through the surgery and then stop talking halfway through and leave them on their own to try to figure it out. So, no love scenes, but definitely a lot of medical jargon.
Yeah. And we had a few questions from readers.
Oh, cool.
I mean, I think there's one from Ellen Vance. I mean, she was wondering, I mean, how much how much research, she's termed it as medical school, but did you go to any kind of sort of medical school to prepare for this?
Yeah, well, we have a guy called Stanley Burns, who's this medical historian who has a brownstone in New York, 4-story brownstone that's covered wall to wall, floor to ceiling in medical equipment from back in the day, journals, photographs, anything you want to know about the history of medicine, he knows it. And he's there on set with us every day that we do a surgery. So he's, he took us through his own version of medical school where he taught us how to suture and how to hold instruments and how to clean our hands properly and, do all the stuff. So he was very, very helpful. And then in terms of our own research, we, all of the actors did their own research in terms of the specific surgeries that we had to do. And then just like what was going on in New York and in the world at the time, socially and politically. So there's quite a lot of research involved in it.
Now, we had another reader question wondering what was the most interesting thing that you discovered about New York in 1900?
Well, for me, one thing I found out, I live in Soho in New York, sort of right on the line between Soho and the West Village.
Okay.
And what I didn't know is that the area that I live in was called Little Africa during this time. It was a center of African-American life in the city. Yeah. And it wasn't until, when Irish people came in, they sort of pushed African-American people further north, and then the Italians came in and pushed the Irish out, who then pushed the African-Americans further north. And that's how, Harlem sort of became the hub. But it was really fascinating. I was reading this book called Low Life, which talked about New York at the time. And it literally mentioned McDougal Street, which is the street I live on.
Oh, yeah.
Minetta Lane and all these streets that are like, I'm so familiar with, where I had no idea they were Little Africa. So that was pretty interesting.
So you were like walking around your neighborhood now with new eyes.
With new eyes, exactly. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess with these surgical, the medical school, the surgical techniques, but I mean, it's circa 1900.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, everybody talks about the Knick as just the crazy, operations and what's going on in the operating room. I mean, that seems to be the thing that really fascinates people, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. People love that, man. It's in that very first episode that the first operation, the C-section, is the one that I think turned.
That was
a lot
your
of
introduction into it.
Yeah, and it was baptism by fire, man. I mean, we got there and I remember we did the first couple of takes, and Stephen was like, "No, we need more blood. We need much more blood." And eventually, there was literally blood, like we were all covered in it. It's all over the floor, and it was. But now we've done it so many times now that it's just almost like old hat.
Yeah, you're used to them saying more blood.
That's now we're saying more blood. Come on,
Yeah. It's because you're rehearsing it. You went through it. You got to know kind of the choreography of those operating scenes.
Mm-hmm.
But then, I mean, once you're into it, and how do they pump the blood? What is that? Some kind of a machine that
they create these ways of getting blood into places that you would not imagine. I mean, and there's all different, like we have some that sort of seep out, and there's one that, some that spurt out, some that spray out. They have all these different things. And most of the bodies, most of the things we use are built by this company. And so they look real, they feel real. They have breathing apparatus inside that it's pretty incredible, man. So the blood can come from anywhere at any time. Yeah.
Keeps you on your toes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the crazy. I mean, beyond the blood, just the prosthetics of the innards are just frightening, realistic, Yeah. Yeah. So, beyond the blood though, I mean, your character had a lot going on that first season. What do he had a relationship. He's brought back to New York from Paris by Cornelia. Right.
Right.
You guys grew up together,
Mm-hmm.
childhood friends. You were mentioned earlier that Clybone's character, Thack, doesn't know that you're made assistant chief surgeon, which is, doesn't go down well with the other surgeons. But I mean, the relationship with Cornelia really takes a lot of interesting turns that first season. What's the dynamic do you see between these two?
Between those two characters?
Yeah.
Well, as you said, I mean, they grew up together almost like brother and sister. And they're very similar in a weird sort of way, because Algernon is fighting for equality in the workplace, and in much the same way that Cornelia is, right?
She's very progressive,
very progressive. She's this woman, she's working in the hospital, and she's, she can see things, she can see sort of what's coming as Algernon can, and I think they bond over that. And like, she's really his only advocate in the hospital right now. She's the one who invited him to come back. She's the one who goes to the board and fights on his behalf. She's who he goes to when he starts to sort of lose his way. They're the best of friends. And so I think it's only natural that their relationship developed the way it did.
Friends with benefits.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then it takes, I mean, it's the kind of thing that's probably sort of doomed from the start, right?
Yeah.
In that time.
Yeah, they were before their time.
Is there going to be more of them in the second season? Or is that thing kind of...
There is more. There's more. I don't want to ruin it for you.
Yeah.
But there's more. There's more to come. There's more to come. It gets it gets more complicated than it was last year. I'll say, if you can believe that. Exactly. It got pretty complicated and pretty dark, but it goes even further this time around. Yeah.
The other great relationship that your character had was with the Clyboane doctor, who's, I mean, and you learned, you were learning about surgeons. I mean, one of the things about that characterizes this profession is ego. These guys have a very certain, strong belief in their own ability and their own, knowledge, and so they're kind of clashing. And eventually, I mean, it was great to get to. I think it was like the 6th episode where finally there's like a real showdown. Were you kind of looking forward to that too?
Oh man, that was when I first read the script. That was my favorite scene. I couldn't wait to get to that part. Couldn't wait. And the way it was originally scripted, it was like an 8-page scene where we just put everything out on the table, and it got trimmed down from that, as we did it. But I mean, that's all the stuff that was pent up. That's all the stuff that Algernon has been carrying around the entire season, and he finally got a chance to say it. And I thought, I was really looking forward to it. And that was the most fun I had doing that scene, and that's the one I think I'm most proud of.
So you were looking forward to that,
man.
the whole. Did they film that early on in the thing?
We filmed it late. We filmed it very, very late, almost towards the end, because all the stuff that happened in the sub basement, my little secret infirmary, happened like right towards the end of the season.
Okay.
But I started working on that scene from the very first day. Literally, I knew it and it was ready to go.
That was like one reason you wanted the show, probably.
Man, absolutely. Listen, it's very, very rare. It has been very rare in my career anyway that I read something that I respond to as viscerally as I did with the Knick, and that scene was a big part of it. I think, Jack and Michael created a character that is complex and unique, and I don't think we've seen a character quite like Algernon on TV. Not for a while anyway.
It's a great,
and it's been amazing, the response, especially the response from the African American community. People who come up to me on the street in New York, people who you wouldn't expect to watch a show like this, come up and say, "Brother, we love what you're doing, man. We love the way the show is going. We love that character." It's something that they really feel sort of, I think, validates them. You know what I mean? It's sort of a witness to their own experience, and I feel very, very proud of that.
Were you getting comments from these same people, like leading up to that 6 episodes? Like, when are you guys? When is Algernon?
Gonna do it? Yeah, absolutely. They were doing that. They loved the episode in I believe it was episode 3 when I go back to the boarding house and the guy talks about my shoes and we end up getting into a fight because it's all stuff that they recognize that they've been through, that I've been through. So again, man, they've written a really, really special character. So,
well, you're in a little movie that came out at the end of the last year, Selma. That also got kind of a visceral response too, didn't it?
It did.
Yeah.
It did.
Did you participate did you go down to Selma around Martin Luther King and participate in the march?
I did. It's funny. I actually grew up in Alabama. I grew up in a town called Bessemer, near Birmingham, which is sort of right between Birmingham and Selma. And so every year we used to go down to Selma to participate in the sort of commemorative Jubilee March. My great uncle ran a funeral home right across the street from the 16th Street Baptist Church where the 4 little girls were killed, which is the opening scene of the film. So I was very much steeped in that history and in that world. And so, you know, I soaked it all up, man. Like as soon as I got the part, I was researching and going down to Selma and spending time with Andy Young.
Yeah, you played Andrew. Yeah. For people
who don't know.
Yeah. Played Andrew Young in the movie. Yeah. But it sounded like, you know, you had a head start.
I think
to be
fair, I think I did. I mean, that's something that my parents were very adamant about us understanding and learning. And then also just growing up in Alabama, there's things I think you learn about that period just kind of through osmosis, just by being there. You soak in that sort of feeling of it. So it was like those two things back to back are like I couldn't have written a better script. Yeah.
What was that like this year with the cast going down there? And it was the day before Martin Luther King Day, right?
Yeah.
It looked pretty.
It's powerful.
Powerful, yeah.
Very, very powerful, man. And this something about the way Ava wrote the script and the way she directed the movie brought the cast together in a way that I haven't experienced. I mean, we really are a family. When I tell you, like, even on the way here, we have this group text going and we're always, you know, where are you now? Where are you now? When can we all get together again?
Yeah.
We all go and support each other's things. And I imagine that that's what it would have been like for those men and women during that time, you know, who were fighting that fight. I think it probably, when you read about it, they say that they really were like this kind of mostly functional, but sometimes dysfunctional family. And so I think our experience mirrored that.
Did growing up in Alabama kind of inform the way you play Algernon in any way?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. One thing that people always ask me about is Algernon's fighting, why he fights so much, why he would, you know, run the risk of hurting his hands and that's something that I think Alabama taught me. Growing up Black and in the South, there is a rage, I think, that can happen to a person. And I think that comes from being overlooked, from not being heard, not feeling seen. And it comes out, right?
Right. In
one way or another. And I think in Algernon's case, that's how he expresses it.
Right.
So I understand that 100%. I mean, fortunately for me, I've found other outlets for my anger or for my frustration, but there are a lot of people who haven't found that, you know, and I think that, I mean, we see what's happening all over the world right now, right? In Baltimore and all those places, you see what happens. I mean,
when there's no outlet,
there's no outlet for it, and people who've, you know, had a boot on their neck for a long time, and
you feel powerless. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about the character, I mean, you mentioned the fighting, but I mean, then, you know, in his normal professional life, he has to, you know, suck it up. He has to be quiet.
Yeah.
But he picks his spots.
He does.
He's very smart about that. You know, he finds moments where he, you know, his professionalism, his knowledge can come out and be demonstrated. You know?
Exactly. I think it's that old idea, W.B. Du Bois' idea of double consciousness, right? Learning how to navigate in both those spaces. And that's something that I feel like Andre has learned to do, you know? But again, like the effect of that, I think, the effect of trying to live in these two different places at the same time is what creates that frustration. James Baldwin has a quote that I love, which says, to be a Negro in this country and to be relatively conscious is to be in a rage most of the time. And I think that's what Algernon is, I believe. That's a big part of him. He sees what's going on. He understands it. And he also understands that he deserves better, that he's done things the right way and he should be treated differently. But it wells up, you know?
Yeah. So there'll be maybe a little progress. You started filming the second season late January?
We did, yeah.
Okay.
And then we'll finish right at the end of May. We're on a hiatus week right now. We go back on Monday and then we're in the home stretch. So it goes so fast, you know, it feels like we just started, but we will have done 10 episodes in 70 some odd days, which is.
Yeah, again, like 600 pages. And And so, I mean, the thing that you learned as an actor doing this was that you better come prepared.
Yes, sir.
Because you're
Yes,
not going
sir.
to you're not spending a whole lot of time. He's not going to do 12 takes.
Nah,
Yeah.
it's not one of those sets where you show up and you kind of know your lines and you kind of rehearse it and fool around with it a bit. No, you gotta be ready. And Clive really is the one who set the bar in that department. He comes to work every single day prepared, like really, really prepared, ready to go. So we all have no choice but to, you know, be on par with that.
Was that something that you just learned right off? I imagine learned right off the bat, where you were doing a scene and you were like, really? That's all I get?
Yeah, absolutely. People, you know, when I mentioned to people that I was going to do the show, some people said, "Oh, well, you know, he works really fast," and I was like, "Okay, whatever." But then when I got there, of course, it's even faster than I imagined. You know, it literally can be 1 take, 2 takes. You know, once he's got it, he moves on. And that's what's so brilliant about him. He knows what he's looking for, and he has confidence that when he's got it, that's it. There's no reason to waste any more time.
We'll be seeing the second season
in October. I believe October 16th is our current.
We were talking about this before we went live. It's like, it's a long time to wait.
Tell me about it,
by
man.
By the end of, you know, when this 10 episodes finish its run, it was about late October, early November. So we've had to wait a year.
I know, but it's going to be worth it. I'm telling you, we got some great stuff coming. It'll be worth the wait.
I believe. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming
thank you
in
so
today.
much.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
for having me, man. I really enjoyed it.
And for more television coverage and Emmy conversations, please go to latimes.com. Thanks for watching.